Most of the time when you fix something and you get it started and running, you're going to feel a great sense of accomplishment. And rightfully so, because you just got something that more than likely was going to be thrown out with the recycling, or worse yet, in the trash, brought back to life. But everything's not sunshine and rainbows. There's still one more thing you need to fix, so you're not home free just yet. Now, it's not going to be easy, so hopefully you're up for the challenge. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this Troy-Bilt branded lawnmower, and the problem is that it starts and runs, which is a whole lot better than what it was doing before. But at the moment, it's really tough to start, forcing you to have to pull on the rope way more than you should. Now, I'm going to try and repair this mower, but yours might be a little different, so this might not work on yours. So if things are not working out for you, like in the video, please ask about it. I'll be glad to answer your questions. So in the last video on this mower, we were able to fix several of the issues that it had. In fact, I lost count during the video, and only after we got it running did we figure out how many issues this mower really had, but it wasn't over just yet. I had left out a few of those issues that we need to fix for this video, and even though these last few issues aren't terrible, the main problem I want to focus on is of course how difficult it can be to start. Now, it doesn't do it all the time, but it seems to happen most often when the engine is cold and hasn't been started in a day or two. Which is of course the very situation you're going to have to deal with when you try to get this mower out of the garage or shed to mow with once a week during the mowing season. So as you can see, this might be a huge problem, especially if you're the type of person who doesn't have a lot of patience when trying to get something to start in 95-degree weather. Now, in the last video, I did change the oil, but since the oil was very dirty the first time around, the fresh oil I'll put into the engine is probably going to need to be changed sooner than later. And for those of you who don't know, this is an overhead valve engine, which unfortunately requires routine maintenance. So more than likely, this will also need to be checked, and you're going to find out just how important it can be later on. Next, I want to show you just how tough it can be to start this engine. I hate to say this out loud, but this time it only took 5 pulls to start it, which is better than the 7 it sometimes needs. Now, my first thought was that the engine could be worn out, and if so, we can test for that by using a compression tester. It's supposed to measure the amount of pressure the engine can make on the compression stroke, but if the piston rings are worn out, it won't make as much pressure. So just how much pressure should the engine make then? Well, it depends, but I'd like to see a reading well over 90 psi, and the higher the better. A healthy engine would typically get a reading of close to 150 psi or more, so anything less than that just means it has some wear on it. Another reason why this engine could be hard to start is because of a bad or worn out spark plug, but surprisingly this plug is not original, meaning someone's changed it at some point. Now, I don't think I'm going to replace it, but it is very dark with carbon, and that might be causing our issue. The other reason for a hard start is a spark plug with a large gap, but after measuring it, it's not that far off from where it needs to be, so I think I'll just clean it here in a bit right after we get our reading. All we have to do is install the tester into the spark plug opening and then spin the engine over. But there is an issue. If we use the pull rope to turn the engine over, the compression release will interfere with our readings. So to get around this, I need to spin the engine faster than what I can do with just using the pull rope. That means I need to remove the cover on the engine so I can use my drill on the flywheel nut. Just remember to have someone hold the brake handle down when you do this test, otherwise the flywheel brake will be on. So as you can see, the tester shows a very high reading of 150 psi, which I don't have to tell you is very good. I would have taken anything higher than 90 psi, so this is definitely a great reading. So if you hadn't guessed it, that means that this engine is not worn out. So what else could cause an engine to be hard to start then? Now, just because we got a high reading doesn't mean we don't have to do some needed maintenance. So on an engine that has valves over the piston, I'd recommend that you check it once in a while. Now, it's up to you when you do it, but I try to check it if not yearly, maybe every other year. Now, to check the valve lash, we need to put the engine on top dead center, but I find it easier to turn the engine until one of the rocker arms is all the way down. After that, I'll then check the clearance between the rocker arm and the tappet of the valve stem of the rocker arm that's still up. The clearance is important because it's supposed to be within a certain range, and if it's out of that range, it could affect how the engine starts and runs. After sliding my 0.04 of an inch feeler in the clearance, it turns out there's way too much space here, so that means we need to make an adjustment to the rocker arm nut to close up that clearance. After rotating the engine, we can then measure the clearance for the other rocker arm and see if it's out of spec as well, and it turns out it's also way out of range, so we'll need to adjust it as well. Now we can't just turn the nut, instead we need to loosen the jam bolt in the middle and then we'll be able to turn the nut. All we need to do is to hold on to the nut and then turn the jam bolt until it's free. And since we have the tools out, we might as well break the jam bolt loose on the other arm as well. After that, all you have to do is slide the feeler into the clearance and then turn the nut in small increments while moving the feeler. Now, once you feel it lightly drag in the clearance, meaning it just barely wants to get stuck, then hold the nut still while tightening the jam bolt. Now, the funny part is that sometimes when you tighten the jam bolt, it'll throw off your adjustment, so you need to check it again, and if it is off, you'll need to adjust it again. Now, after doing this arm, all you have to do is rotate the engine so you can do the same process for the other arm. After you've done this once or twice, it gets a lot easier to do and you'll start to get more comfortable doing it. Just remember to tighten the jam nut well, otherwise it might come loose. Now, I would always recommend that you check your work as you go along. That way you'll be able to see if something goes wrong, and if it does go wrong, well, you can fix it right then and there. That's what happened on this one. Each and every time I would set the jam nut, the clearance would always be a bit off afterwards, and I'd have to go back and fix it by making tiny adjustments. And after having to make several minor adjustments, I was finally able to set the clearance. Once that's done, we'll then put the valve cover back onto the engine and replace the bolts. Now, I have to wonder if closing up the clearance between the rocker arm and the tappet is going to affect the compression reading. Now, before the adjustment, the extra clearance was causing a delay when opening the valve, so closing that gap could possibly lower the reading we get from the tester. So according to the tester, there was a small difference in the reading. In fact, it's small enough that I'd say that it did not have any impact on it at all. However, if the clearance had been too tight originally and we opened it back up, I think we would have seen a bigger change. So here is yet another mistake we can add to our long list from the last video. I know it's hard to tell, but this blade is on upside down, and what that means is that the cutting edge is facing the wrong way. Of course, that means the dull edge of the blade was basically tearing the grass apart instead of cutting it. Now the mower is still going to work, but it puts a lot of stress on the engine when this happens. And of course, if we look at the other end of the blade, we can now see the cutting edge, but it's not facing the same direction as the direction it's supposed to be turning. Now it's not that big of a deal. I'll just remove the blade, and while it's out, I'll sharpen it and then reinstall it in the correct orientation. Like I said, it's a simple mistake and it's easy to do. In fact, I may have done it before decades ago, so it does happen. Now, if you don't want to or just don't know how to sharpen your own blade, you can always just buy a new one, but I would like to recommend that you keep your old blade just in the off chance you might need it in the future. Now, you never know, you might hit something one day and bend it out of shape, and having your old blade on hand might get you through your mow until you decide to get a new blade, or maybe by then you might have learned how to sharpen and balance them. Now, this goes without saying, but just be careful when tightening your bolt, because if you slip, that blade could cut you very easily. Now, while I have the mower on the table, I also want to check and see if the crankshaft might be bent. Now, to do that, I want to put a line across the screen and have it touching the bolt. Then I'll turn the engine and watch to see if the bolt isn't going to touch the line at any one point while spinning it. But as you can see, for the most part, it's always touching it. So as far as I can tell, the crankshaft is not terribly bent. Now, before I put the spark plug back into the engine, I need to clean it, but how am I going to do that? So if you've seen my older videos, you know that I like to use my torch because I find it easier to use. However, there are other ways to clean it. Of course, you could always just replace it, but since this one is not original, I'm going to keep using it until I have a reason to change it. Unfortunately, I was running low on propane that day, so I wasn't able to get the tip of the plug as hot as I wanted to, but I still got rid of most of the oil and carbon off of it. After letting it cool down, I'll then reinstall it back into the engine, replace the cover, which is also the recoil assembly, and then try and start it. Now remember, the last time I tried to do this, it took 5 pulls to get it to start, so anything less than 5 pulls is a win in my book, but realistically, I like to take 2 pulls to start it. So if the problem's still there, I'm going to consider replacing the spark plug with a new OEM one, and I would also like to swap out the old air filter to a new one just on the off chance that it's a lot more clogged up than I can really tell. So luckily this time it only took a single pull to start, which is a huge improvement over the last time. But now I have to wonder, how's it going to start when the engine is hot? Will it improve here as well? So as you can see and hear, it only took a single pull to start even when it's hot, which is another win for this mower. Now while the engine is still hot, I do want to dump out that oil that I put in the other day. So why am I doing yet another oil change on it, considering that I only have about 20 minutes of runtime on it since the last time? The answer is simple. I'm showing you just how bad the oil can look when you leave a few ounces of dirty oil in the engine and you add new oil to it. So even though this oil is only 20 minutes old, the old dirty oil that was left in here has turned it into this. Now it only looks bad, but I assure you this oil is clean and it's nowhere near as dirty as what came out of the engine the first time. I'll then replace the oil and this oil is going to look a whole lot better than the stuff I just poured out. The other reason I did the second oil change is because it shows you why I like to flush the engines when I get one that's this bad. It helps to get rid of most of the sediments and helps extend the life of the engine. Now I wouldn't recommend doing an engine flush very often, but if I had to guess, I'd say every few years. I'll leave it up to you on the interval. Now while I have this chance, I'm also going to lubricate the recoil since more than likely it's never been done before. Now surprisingly, this one was not as bad as I was expecting it to be considering what kind of condition we found this mower to be in. I also wanted to point out another issue with this mower, which is the location where they had the pull rope guide on the handlebar. Now when I would go to pull on the rope, it felt really awkward and I wasn't sure why, but come to find out they had the guide in an opening higher up in the handlebar than typical. Now what this did was it left you a lot less rope to pull on to start the mower since most of it was already out of the recoil. Now it's not a big deal, but I've never seen it done that way before, but I moved it back down so that it felt like every other mower I've used before. There was also a wing nut missing from this handlebar, but instead of replacing it with a real one, I'm just going to use a nut and bolt. This will make pushing on the handlebar feel more secure than before. Now that this mower starts and runs like it should and is now able to cut the grass instead of beating it up, I think it's time to give this mower back so it can get a second chance at being useful again. You know, I can't really fault the previous owner of this mower. They had it for 7 years, and in that time, it's done exactly what they needed to do. It's just too bad they didn't treat it any better. At least now it'll be in a better place, right next door to where it used to live. That way, each and every time they use the mower, the previous owner can see what it could really do when taken care of. Oh, and for your information, the person who gave this mower away did replace it with a battery mower, and who knows, with their history of maintenance, we might be able to see that one on this channel sooner than later. So my question is, have you ever had a mower that was almost impossible to start, whether hot or cold, and if you did, whatever happened to it? Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.